The use tax is really applies to interstate sales, whereas the sales tax applies to intrastate sales. So, for example, if you buy something from a store that's right down the street from you, they'll charge you sales tax. You'll pay it to them, and they'll send it into the state. If you buy something from out of state, the sale is taking place outside the state, and therefore there's no sales tax. But technically, you as the consumer have to pay this complementary tax, which is designed to try to make in-state and out-of-state companies sort of similar. So you would have to self-assess yourself the use tax, but you can imagine if Amazon or any of the .com companies who are selling over the internet are selling to thousands of people in the state, who's it easier to catch? By a state, the 1,000 people in the state, all of whom have a little bit of use tax that they're not paying, or let's get BestBuy.com or Borders.com or Amazon.com and make them collect it for us. Well, the reason that use tax hasn't been collected is there's a number of Supreme Court decisions that limit the state's ability to tax an out-of-state company. And it goes way back. The Constitution basically says under the Commerce Clause that Congress is the only one who can regulate interstate commerce. So many times the states pass a law that impacts interstate commerce, they have to be very, very careful that they are not burdening interstate commerce. There's a bunch of rules that relate to what a burden on interstate commerce is. But the Supreme Court in 1968 dealt with a case called Bellas Hess, which was a catalog seller who sold into a state, and they didn't have any physical presence in the state. The United States Supreme Court looked at that because the state was trying to make them collect the local use tax on their out-of-state sales. And they said, hey, we want to create what they called a bright line test, so it wasn't really questionable. It was clear. So what they said was, if you have a physical presence, like a store, a salesman, whatever, you're taxable and you got to collect it. If you don't, you don't. And that's how it went until the Quill case came down in 1992. And the Quill case basically said that the states had, ever since 1968, tried to kind of like eat away at that physical presence. They would pass laws that said, well, it doesn't necessarily need to be a store or an employee. If you're sending catalogs into the state, you're advertising in the state, then we can tax you because it may not be physical presence, but it's close. But Quill came down to the United States Supreme Court and they said, no, we're still relying on Bellas Hess. But we realized in 1992, the Supreme Court said that things have changed a little bit. Commerce has changed a lot between 68 and 92. And it's changed a heck of a lot from 92 to the present day. So you see this evolution. And so from 1992, when Quill came out, till now, the states have tried to start reaching out again. And they've come up with this click-through nexus approach. Amazon and these other companies in some states where they don't have warehouses or they don't have stores, what they do is they say if you are basically advertising on a website and you can click through to the actual website of the seller, that presence in the state, that website presence, is enough to bring you in. And a number of states have passed this in a way of trying to reach out and grab these companies. New York, basically, their highest court held that the click-through nexus statute that they had was sufficient nexus, even though it seems to be inconsistent with Quill and Bellas Hess. But there was a court decision in Illinois, which was last month, which basically held the other way. It actually said that the Internet Tax Freedom Act of the federal government, which basically says that you can't tax the internet, it said that Illinois' statute was unconstitutional because it was preempted by this federal statute. So you have Illinois coming down one way, you have New York coming down the other way, and California has a bunch of statutes that are very similar, and they haven't risen a case that high in their system yet. So the question is, what's going to happen next? Well, New York kind of got on the, tried to get on the docket first by going to the Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court denied certiorari, which gives them the ability to basically not take the case. And a couple of days ago, they decided not to take the case.